Welcome to Yarnspirations.com. In this video I want to talk quite a bit about how to accurately measure a gauge swatch. The reason you need your gauge to match the pattern gauge is because you want your project to look like the project shown in the photos. Particularly for fitted garments, having even a small difference in the gauge means that that item may not fit the way you want it to. To begin, knit a swatch in the pattern stitch that you're going to use for your project. I use stocking stitch here. You want the swatch to be at least 4 inches wide by 4 inches tall, but a little bit bigger is better. I want to take my measurements in the center of the swatch, not along the outside edges, where the fact that they're an edge stitch might have pulled it just a little bit out of shape. I also want to do to my swatch whatever I'm going to do to the finished project. If I'm going to machine wash and dry the sweater, for example, I will machine wash and dry the swatch. If I have a lace pattern that needs to be blocked, I'm going to block the swatch. I want to make sure that the numbers that I'm getting reflect the most accurate measurement I can get. Next, I'm going to measure over 4 inches, not over 1, particularly in instances where you might have partial stitches, say 2.5 or 2 3/4 stitches to the inch. You get a much more accurate representation measuring over 4. I like these clear rulers because you can see through them and see what your stitches are doing and make sure they're not pulled out of shape, but any ruler you have or tape measure will do. Line up the beginning of your ruler, line up the first line outside of the first stitch. Not the edge of the ruler, that's not always the same place. So I have it lined up right here and I'm going to count all the way across until I get to 4 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I have 16 stitches to 4 inches, which is the same as 4 to the inch. But again, having measured over 4, I have a much more accurate representation. Now I'm going to turn the work the other way and I'm going to measure the number of rows. Knit stitches aren't square, so you will very rarely, unless it's a fancy pattern stitch, have the same number of stitches per inch and rows per inch. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure that my marking line is at the very bottom of a stitch, not the edge of the ruler, but the line, and I'm going to count until I get to 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I have 21 rows per 4 inches. Now, I compare those stitches to the numbers that are shown on my pattern. If I have too few stitches or rows per 4 inches, I'm going to try again with a smaller set of knitting needles. If I have too many stitches or rows per 4 inches, I'm going to try again with a larger knitting needle. I'm going to keep making gauge swatches until I get one that is close to the pattern gauge as I can possibly get, and I also need to be pleased with the fabric. Take special note that sometimes you can get a different row gauge based on what your knitting needle is made out of. A bamboo needle is going to get different row gauge than a metal needle or a plastic one. Once you have an accurate gauge swatch, you can go ahead and finish your project, no matter what it is, knowing that it will fit you the way it wants to fit you and look the way you want it to look. Thanks so much for joining us.